So today I'm going to be fixing a puncture. This particular one's on a Brompton. Let me show you. Got a nice squashy tyre, gone flat, need to fix it. Now hopefully I'll be able to show you that it's actually not too bad a job to do, relatively quick. So first thing to do is to take the wheel off. So initially this one's got plastic covers which just pop off. You should be able to expose the wheel nuts by just popping these off. There's one, don't lose it. And another one. And we don't lose that one either. I mean, they're not particularly important for the workings of the bike, but they do help stop it from digging into things. This is a folding bike, so you end up catching it on things. So there we are. Find a spanner, which you should always carry with you. And then we can, using an open hand that way, loosen the tyres, loosen the nuts, sorry. And once we've loosened them, now bikes vary. Most bikes you can just drop the wheel out at that point. This particular one has got these little extra washers that lock in. We'll take that one out and take that one out. That should free up. In fact, I'm going to have to take this whole thing off. There's a little extra bit on this one. It fits over. Take that whole washer off. And there we go. Wheel comes out. Now you should find it comes past the brakes reasonably easy because it's got a flat. If not, if you've got V brakes, you'll need to just unhook them so they open. If you've got real trouble, you can undo the little bolts on here to let the brakes go. Normally, as I said, when the tyre's flat, it comes off. Now for the next part, you need all the air out of the tyre, so make sure you've pressed the valve, and what you can do is roll it on the floor with the valve pressed like this. Press the valve and roll it on the floor, make sure there's no air left in. Not normally a problem. And you'll find when it's loose, this you can just about see that the tyre will move relative to the wheel. It's a little bit loose. So use that to our advantage. What I don't want to do is to use tyre levers, which are going to get in there and pinch the inner tube. So there's the valve. So opposite the valve, where I've got a lot of space, I push it down and I'm pulling up on the sides. So I'm bunching the tyre around towards the top here, and what that does is create me a little gap. If I then pull up and push, there you go, it comes off. And what you do, you go all the way around until it's just off on that one rim, and then you find the valve wherever it's gone and you reach in, and what you can do, push the valve up and you'll find the inner tube just pops out like so. Now don't move the tyre, because when we found the hole, we'll want to check the tyre against where it is in the rim, against where the hole is, to find out if there's anything still sticking through that caused the problem. So I'll put that down and then we can work on the inner tube. So what I've done here is I've blown up the tyre, blown up the inner tube using a pump, and quite often it depends. If there's quite a big leak, you'll often hear it straight away. Another thing you can do is if you put your cheek next to it and just turn it around slowly, you'll sometimes feel air blowing on your face. This is a useful technique at the side of the road. Now I'm not sure I'm going to do with this one because it's a very, very slow puncture. It took about 2 days to go down. So no, I'm not feeling anything from there. So then we take it to the next step, which is to go and get a bowl of water and put it in there. So once you've found your puncture, you need to find something to patch it with. I like to carry these sort of things around with me in my cycle repair kit. You don't need a puncture repair kit. Most of the stuff in there you don't need. These sticky patches are really good. I've heard people complain about them, but I've never found them a problem. I've always found that they work really well. So the first thing you do, you found your puncture, and if it's a tiny one you can't see, you can mark it with a bit of chalk, just so that you can see where it is. This one's not too hard to see. So what you do, I'm just gone down again so I'll put a bit more air in it so I can see where it is. You take a little bit of sandpaper, again you can carry it with you. You find your puncture, and then what you want to do is just clean the area with your sandpaper so you've got a nice key for the glue to work on. Once you've done that, you can take your patch and it usually peels off the backing. And now the trick is you blow up the tyre, you blow up the inner tube, sorry, to the point where it looks like it's about the same size. Where's it gone? It looks like it's about the same size as it will be in the tyre. So about there feels about right, because that way when it expands, when it's in the tyre, this will sit nicely against it and it won't be, you know, stretched, and that will cause it to come off again. So find the puncture, which is really quite hard to see in this one. Peel the backing off. Make sure it's pumped up, and then we simply put the patch over the hole and then we squeeze it on. And then we do this for about 30 seconds, a minute. Just keep holding it over where the hole is, and that should give it the glue a chance to set. So a minute or so has passed. I can now see that the patch is nicely stuck on. You can see it there. It's not leaking. You can pump the tyre, you can feel it, you can put it in water just to check if you want to, but essentially that's now done. The next thing to do is to put it back in. And what I like to do, a little trick I use for some old talc, some old baby powder, is because what happens, especially if you've had it in water, these can be a bit sticky. First of all, you want to make sure it's completely dry before you put it back in. But you can put a bit of talc on it, not much, just a bit, just around the inner tube like this, and it'll just stop it from sticking to the inside for next time. There we go. It makes it smell nice too. Okay, now putting it back in. I've seen this done wrong a lot of times. Now, first of all, we know where the puncture is, so we find the hole, and now I've put this in. The puncture is here, okay, just round, so I've got the hole that the tube will go through just there. So we line up the tube against where it is, where it was, and then we just very carefully check inside the tyre here to see if we can see what made the hole. Sometimes you find there's a thorn, you fix the tyre, you put it back in, the thorn punctures it again. So where it was, we just check that there's nothing still sticking through, and I'm not seeing anything. I'll have a look in the rest of the tyre as well to make sure that's all good, just in case. And that all looks okay. So let's put it back together. So you blow up the tyre to round about where it will be, so it looks like it will, where it will be in the actual tyre when it's done. And then you find the hole in the rim, and then you push your inner tube into the tyre, and then you should be able to put your valve through the hole if your nuts and bolts don't all fall off the wheel. Okay, so I've pushed that through there, so that's the first in, and then I'll just go around all the way around, and I'm just putting the tube back into the tyre like that. Okay, so it's in now, and then I can just push it in, and then make sure the valve is vertical, and then we can start to just push that over the rim. Now where the valve is, if you push it up and wriggle it and pull it down again, that'll make sure it's seated properly. And just go all the way around until we get to the end, and this is the bit where it gets a little bit tight. So we're going to use the same technique as we did before. So I'm going to let all the air out of the tyre, because it's the air that holds the tyre in place. And again, I can push it on the floor, or I can roll it about till I'm sure that all the air's out of that tyre. Once it's out, what I can do, and I'll pan it down again, I can push the tyre on the floor, and this time the valve's at the bottom, and I can pull it up at the sides there, pull it up, and that should make me some space up at the top. And then all I need to do is clip this in with my fingers, and it's in. No tyre levers, no messing about. As I said, tyre levers, what will happen is you catch the inner tube with the tyre lever and break it. So final thing to do is put a bit of air in it. Now you can put air in it once you've put it back on the bike. Sometimes it makes it easier to get over the brakes, but I like to put air in it first to make sure it's not going down before I spend time putting it back on the bike. So I can pump that up. And I can feel that's, yep, I can feel that's good. I can feel there's air going back into it. So let's take the pump off again. And there we are, one fixed tyre. It'll need a lot more pressure than that, but that's basically fixed. Now we'll stick it back on the bike. Okay, so we'll put the tyre back on, put the wheel back on. And all you do, reversal, refitting is the reversal of removal. So you can pass the brakes, put the wheel into the forks there. Okay, that's in. Now on most bikes you can leave the nut and the washer on and just push it back in like that and then just do them up. On the Brompton here, sometimes you have to take them off because there's all these extra bits of metal around. Now these are the little nuts with lugs that you'll often find, so that has to go in first, and that goes into a little lug on the frame, and it's the same on this side, goes into a little lug on the frame. Now the one on this side, because it's got this extra bit of wire, you make sure that the gap, so it's got a flat side and a side with a sort of a hole in it. Well, that side with a hole in it goes on the outside. It's pretty obvious. And then that locks into the frame so it won't turn, and that essentially will hold the wheel on. If your nuts come loose, these things will just hold the wheel from falling off. And then a washer and a nut over the top on that side. And on this side, you've got your strange metal bit that goes in there, and then you put a washer and a nut on that side too. Just tighten those up. And then you just take your spanner and you can start doing these up. So once you get to a point where they're just sort of very gently tight, just about there, you can then just double check that the wheel's central. It should spin and not rub on the brakes, and you're just checking that it's the same distance from both brakes, so you've got it in central, and then gently tighten. There we go, that one and that one. Give it a good test, and that's job done. You can now bring the wheel back up to the proper pressure, 100 psi or so on these, and you're good to go. So I hope that was helpful. As I said, it doesn't apply to just Bromptons, it applies to any sort of bike, but hopefully you can see 5-10 minute job by the side of the road, not a problem.